Nobody knows where we're at, as usual.
Chapter 12, I think. I can tell you.
Which text should we start? 16. Really? Yeah. I'm going to start writing this down starting today. Okay, we'll start on text 16, chapter 12, page number 613. 613. Here we go. What we'll do is we'll read 11 of the verses, we'll read the Sanskrit, and then we'll go back and read some of the purport and have a discussion. Text 16. Anapeksha shuchir daksha udasino gatavyataha sarvaramba parityagi yomad bhakta samepriyaha. A devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and who does not strive for some result, is very dear to me. Text 17. Yo na hrishyati na dveshti na shochati na kankshati shubha shubha parityagi bhaktimanya samepriyaha. One who neither grasps pleasure or grief, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things is very dear to me. Text 18 and 19. Sama shucha cha mitre cha tathamana pamanaya shitoshna sukatu keshu samasanga vivarjitaha tulyanindastutirmani santushto yena kenachit aniketastirammatir bhaktiman me priyo naraha. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contamination, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and engaged in devotional service, is very dear to me. Text 20. Ye tu dharmyam mritam midam yatoktam parupasate Shradhana mat padama bhaktaste ti but me priyaha. He who follows this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engages himself with faith in making me the supreme goal is very, very dear to me. Okay, that ends chapter 12. We'll go to chapter 13. Text 1 and 2. Arjuna uvacha prakritim purusham chaiva kshetram kshetrakyam evacha etad veditum ijhami jnanam gyayam chakeshava Shri Bhagavan uvacha idam shariram kanteya kshetramitya bhidhiyate etad yoveti tam brahu kshetrakya iti tadvidaha. Arjuna said, "Oh, my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the end of knowledge." The blessed Lord then said, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field." Text 3. Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu parvata Kshetra Kshetra Gyayor Gyanam Yat Taj Gyanamatam Mama. O Sayana Bharat, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its owner is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Text 4. Tat Kshetram Yat Chayadrikcha Yad Vikari Yatascha Yat sachayo yad prabhavascha tat samasena me shinu. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. Text 5. Rishipir bahudha gitam chantopir vividhai pritak ramasutra pataschaiva hetumadbir vinishchitahai. That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings, especially in the Vedanta Sutra, and is presented with all reasoning as to cause and effect. Text 6 and 7. Mahabhutani hankaro buddhiravyaktam evacha indriyani dashaikam cha panchachindriya gochara ichadvesha sukham dukham sanghatas chetanaditi etakshetram samasena savikadam udharitam. The five great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, the mind, the five sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms, and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. So we'll go back to text 16, chapter 12. Anapeksha shuchir daksha udasino gatavyata sarvaramba parityagi yomad bhakta samebriya. A devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary courses of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and who does not strive for some result is very dear to me. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Money may be offered to a devotee, but he should not struggle to acquire it. If automatically by the grace of the Supreme money comes to him, he is not agitated. Naturally, a devotee takes bath at least twice in a day and rises early in the morning for devotional service. Thus, he is naturally clean both inwardly and outwardly. A devotee is always expert because he fully knows the sense of all activities of life, and he is convinced of the authoritative scriptures. A devotee never takes part of the particular party. Therefore, he is carefree. He is never pained because he is free from all designations. He knows that his body is a designation. So if there are some bodily pains, he is free. The pure devotee does not endeavor for anything which is against the principles of devotional service. For example, constructing a big building requires great energy, and a devotee does not take to such business if it does not benefit him by advancing his devotional service. He may construct a temple for the Lord, and for that he may take all kinds of anxiety, but he does not construct a big house for his personal relations. We'd love to hear from you on the Bhagavad Gita.
Devotee is someone who's totally fixed on doing everything for Krishna. So it's not that he's against, he can build a big building. And sometimes Prabhupada showed that. He was involved in building some gigantic buildings. But it wasn't for his own personal sense gratification. Just like there's one man, in our case, from India, he's become extraordinarily wealthy, and he just built the most expensive house in the history of America. But it's just a house. So he's not going to get the benefits that he built that for Krishna to demonstrate, show the glory of Krishna, and to propagate his work. So that's the idea, that's the difference. That's what makes everything auspicious when Krishna is in the center. Then as it says here, he's not attached to auspicious or inauspicious things, because that duality doesn't appear for him. In other words, if I'm doing this under the direction of the higher spiritual authorities, then it's auspicious. But what happens if there's a fire? That's just part of the transcendental pastime of the Lord. And I have to continue on with my service. Just like Krishna was in the forest, there was a forest fire. You can say, forest fire came to burn down all Krishna's friends, the whole Vrindavan. You know how these forest fires are, it's hard, can't stop. Someone said it was all inauspicious. But actually, nothing's inauspicious when Krishna is present. He makes everything inauspicious auspicious by his presence. Even the Battle of Kurukshetra, which was a shame in one sense, from a material point of view. The Pandavas were given not very nice treatment by their cousin brothers. They were mistreated. And they didn't deserve to go through the kind of difficulties they had to go through. But they took it in Krishna conscious spirit, just like Krishna is saying here. Therefore, they're very dear to him, not affected by happiness, distress. They don't feel any pain, always enthusiastic. So all these good qualities, they automatically come. Yasyasti bhakti bhagavati kincha sarvar tatra samasate sura marava bhakti shikutomar manovadena davato hi. For a devotee, automatically the good qualities come. Why? Because he's associating with Krishna. He's doing things for Krishna. And that means Krishna's goodness, Krishna's qualities will come to him also. He'll naturally develop those qualities. It's like if one is born from a very good father, very good mother, good environment, good family. So then it's to be expected that he will develop these qualities. So that's the point. And that's for everyone. Everyone can do that. Everyone can make Krishna the center of their life. And he can become Krishna conscious. And he'll have all good qualities. Nobody will be able to find any fault in him. Because he's not moved by the same things. And the next part of the verse explains that those who are on the mental platform, the materialistic persons, they're moved by the mind, therefore you can't trust them. You don't know what they're going to do next because they're simply activated by the mind. And the mind sometimes comes up with good ideas, sometimes the mind comes up with horrible ideas. But because he's that non-devotee, is not activated by Krishna, he's activated by his mind, what I think, what I feel like. So he may come up with a great idea. I'm going to serve Krishna in this way. Good plan. And then sometime later he may say, I feel like going to Hawaii instead. Something a little more refreshing, relaxing. That may be his mind. That may not be Krishna speaking. And he can't tell the difference because he's not accustomed to seeing how Krishna is instructing him all the time. Arjuna had to learn that. That was the first lesson. Because Arjuna and Krishna were carrying on this conversation. And Arjuna couldn't see that He wasn't able to see that Krishna's view was different than his view. They were both friends, so he took it to, no, friend, I give my opinion, he gives his opinion, and work something out. But that doesn't work with Krishna. If you want Krishna, then you have to do it his way. Then it works out. So that means surrender. We're a little afraid of that word, surrender. Because we're afraid that we're going to be cheated. Someone's going to take advantage of us. But that's completely opposite from the real Guru and the real Vaishnava and the real Krishna. God is not like that, and God's devotees aren't like that. And you don't have to spend too much time with them just to find that out. Spend a little time. You'll see the difference. They're not motivated by what they feel, what their senses dictate, or what the politicians or the public dictates. They're not influenced by that. They just want to do what Krishna wants. And therefore, they're beyond time. Everyone's saying, well, now if you live through this period, you have to face these difficulties. These obstacles will be there. How are you going to deal with them? But a Krishna conscious person, he rises above them all because he's not on the mental platform. He's not on the temporary. He's on the eternal platform. Therefore, he always does the right thing. He always knows what's the right thing to do, even though it may seem as though he's from a different time period. It's like Srila Prabhupada. To some, it seemed that he was born in the 19th century. It's a different century than us. Two different centuries than some of us. But he was right up with the times. Any challenge you gave him, what would you do about this? What about that? Krishna's devotee will have the answer. Yes, in that case, this. In this case, that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was a householder. And in his occupation, he was a chief judge, very high judge. But he did his work in a fraction of the time that most judges have to deliberate. Why? Because he's cultivating his pure Krishna consciousness. So it's almost like Krishna just does it for him, makes the decisions. He just dictates. Like it's a Prabhupada said about his writing. And Krishna's writing these books, I'm just secretary.
Jai. Thank you, Maharaj. I was just reflecting how sometimes we have an idea and we think it's so good. We're going to do this idea that comes to our mind and we think it's the best idea ever. And then only later we come to find out it was such a big mistake. Problems only came from it. But like what Maharaj is saying is when we hear from the devotees, we can learn to act and not have those problems ensue because they've seen the root of the problems. Actually, they've persevered on the path past these problems and they can give advice beyond these problems. Where a lot of times, we're dealing with the fruit of problems, but we're not getting to the root of the problems. It's like if you're taking care of a plant and it's always producing these diseased fruit and you're just looking at the fruit or the flowers that are all messed up, but you're not getting to the essence of why it's actually happening, then it will continue happening just in different ways. But the root of all of our problems is that we've turned away from Krishna, we've turned away from God. And we've tried to put ourselves in the center. And when we put ourselves in the center, things don't work out so good because the world does not revolve around us, no matter how much we try. And one could say, surely the world doesn't revolve around me. I know this. I don't think I'm God, but our thoughts, our mental space paints a different picture. That we see the world in relation to myself, how it will bring me enjoyment, how this person interacts with me, me. Always seeing from our perspective. So when we hear from Krishna and the devotees, then our perspective gets taken to spiritual perspective, which cuts beyond what Maharaj was speaking about, this mental platform, which is born of all these dualities. So Krishna here in the end of this 12th chapter is showcasing all these qualities that makes one endeared to him. And we don't have to separately endeavor for these qualities. Naturally, by endeavoring in devotional service, then all these qualities manifest to different extents, within the individual. But they're all qualified by one thing: devotional service, this faith and devotion and love to Krishna. Then by that, Krishna provides everything that's there. Krishna, he says he provides what the devotee lacks and carries what they have. So the pure devotee is always dependent upon Krishna and not his own strength. When we're dependent upon our own self, surely we'll get beat down eventually. We'll become humbled. But when we're depending upon Krishna, who can humble Krishna? Nobody. So the example is given like a child who is dependent upon its parents. The parents are there to look after the child, and the child goes on playing and he does all sorts of nonsense things, sticking things in his mouth, about to fall down the stairs, running in the road. But the parents are there to watch him and protect him. So similarly, this is what it's like for a devotee depending upon Krishna. And we have practical examples in the Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically Prahlad Maharaj. His father tried to kill him so many times in so many different ways, but he simply went on remembering Krishna and depending upon Krishna, and Krishna protected him in every situation. So this is what we're practicing. This is what this chapter is all about. Arjuna, he asked, what is better conclusively, the impersonal approach to God to attain Krishna, or the direct route of thinking of you, worshiping you? Because it's already been established at this point that to come to the platform of worshiping Krishna is the highest of all yogas. The end of the 6th chapter, Krishna says this, of the best of all yogis, he who meditates on me, thinks of me, gives himself exclusively to me. So then these middle 6 chapters, Krishna opens that up, what devotional service is all about, his greatness, his opulences, and ultimately in the previous chapter, the universal form. So then Arjuna became bewildered by the impersonal aspect of the Lord versus the personal. And if we remember what happened, Arjuna was bewildered and he asked Krishna to take, his form as Shyamasundar, this 2-armed loving form of Krishna that we all know. So in the beginning of this chapter, Arjuna asked which path is better to reach you, actually. He's not even asking which is a better state of existence, impersonal worship of God or personal, asking what's the better path to get there. And Krishna conclusively says that through devotional service, this is the highest path one could take. And we could see, he says that the impersonal, indirect process is very difficult, it's very troublesome for embodied souls because it entails shutting out the senses. And I don't know about you all, but we may try to sit down for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. All of a sudden I'm thinking, I got to do something. I want to pull out my phone. I want to go eat something. So much activity the senses require. So from day one, although this whole culture and process is very foreign to us, it's very joyous, it's very nice. Instead of shutting down the senses and going inward and not committing to any activity in the world around us, we're engaged in so much nice activity. Wonderful food, wonderful singing and dancing and chanting, wonderful devotee association. And one other thing I was thinking about is how natural this process actually is. We can look at life from the philosophy of trying to make everything void and seeing it to be all illusion, or that it's all from the mind, or it's ultimately impersonal and it's all illusion. You have to work so hard to juggle all these thoughts in your mind to like conceive it in a particular way, to see it in this light, and then to like hold on to that thought is very difficult, and then alienates you from everybody else generally because it's such an obscure thought. But to see Krishna being the Supreme Lord, he creates the world, we're actually servants of him, and I just engage my senses in the service of him. It's very practical, it's very easy to do. And Krishna says, Susukam Kartamavya, it's actually joyfully performed. So there's bliss from day one, although because of our conditioned nature, we may have lots of ups and downs. But there's lots of engagement that's very blissful. So then Krishna establishes that this personal process is the best, and that for one who goes on constantly remembering him and worshiping him, Krishna is the swift deliverer from birth and death. Who wants to be freed from birth and death? Yeah, this is all of our problems. We're going from one body to another body and accepting that to be ourselves. And Prabhupada says here that this body is a designation. So there's a shloka that Srila Prabhupada quotes often is Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat paridvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti uchite. Sarvapadi means all designations. We may have designation as man or woman, husband, wife. You know, I do this job, I do this occupation, I'm from this country, I'm from this place. Upadi, all different upadis, different designations that we carry, how we identify with the world around us. Our false sense of self-identity. But when we take to devotional service, this is the real designation, is that we're just a servant of the Lord. The Lord is almighty, all powerful, and we are just a tiny little spark of his, not even worthy to be a grain of dust at his feet. Lord Chaitanya prayed like this, please just make me a dust at your lotus feet. So as we take up devotional service, our senses will become purified. We engage our senses in the service of the master of the senses. And naturally, all these false designations will become lifted. This veil of illusion will become cleansed. You know, Lord Chaitanya says, Chaita Darpana Marjanam, this mirror within the heart. It's covered with dust so we can't see reality. So as that dust is cleared, we can start to see clearly what's going on. And one wakes up to his real designation of being a servant of the Lord. And by engaging your senses in the service of the master of the senses, then one becomes extremely blissful. So Krishna goes on to say, if you can't do that, and he gives many different options to follow. And there's an internal process of fixing your mind and intelligence on Krishna. And if you can't always be wrapped in thought and connected to Krishna that way, then we should perform sadhana bhakti, or abhyas yoga, practicing. Meaning, I'm practicing to remember God at all times, and I'm cultivating my life in a certain way to build it so I can constantly bring my mind back when it does wander. I don't know if everybody else has experience of the mind wandering, but Krishna himself says, chanchalam, the mind is flickering by nature. One must practice to bring it under control by detachment and practice. We need to bring it back and be detached when it leaves and bring it back, bring it back. But what are we bringing it back to? Bringing it back to thinking about Krishna. So if one's not able to follow this path of sadhana bhakti, then one has to take up the path of working for Krishna. Krishna's Lord, Krishna's God. I may not be able to love him and give my energy and thoughts to him, so at least let me do some work for his pleasure and offer it to him. So this is external. Whereas before it's internal, fixing your mind on Krishna. But if you can't do that, then external, let me do some external work, some activity to actually offer to Krishna. But these are the direct process. If one can't take up the direct process, then there's prescriptions how to approach Krishna indirectly. But this indirect process is bona fide. It's there to help uplift us and purify our consciousness so we can come to a point of loving God, but very troublesome, very difficult, very prolonged when simply turning our love and attention to Krishna from day one. You can taste the nectar, the bliss that's there. And it's a very interesting thing with this bhakti yoga is that the same thing that you'll come in and do on day one, it's the same thing you'll be doing after you've been practicing for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So it's not that we're doing this to get to some goal and then I'm going to be free from all my problems and I don't need it anymore. No, actually, this process is so filled with substance, so filled with nectar that just by performing it, one can taste that nectar at all times. But due to our offenses, due to our attachments to the material world, it prevents us from tasting that. We're conditioned to tasting things and experiencing things in a certain way. So when we don't experience it in the way that we intended, we think, oh, that's not great. So the example is given of jaundice. A person who has jaundice, he tastes sweet things to be bitter. Imagine taking, a popsicle, put it in your mouth, and you're like, oh, that's bitter. There's a disease. It's called jaundice. This is what happens. But you know what the cure for jaundice is? You have to keep taking sweet things. Keep taking. So in the beginning stages of bhakti yoga, chanting, waking up early, being strict, controlling our senses, it seems very bitter and unpalatable. But this is the recommended procedure by we keep doing it, we keep doing it, we realize, oh, it's actually not bitter, it's actually sweet. And it doesn't take so long at all to look back, at the life that a lot of us used to live before Krishna consciousness, filled with confusion and detrimental relationships and intoxication and fear and anxiety, and see how all these things are wiped away and we actually have a resolute purpose in life, a goal. And sometimes there's ups and downs, but there's a clear-cut goal of where to strive for. So then every step you're making, you're actually making advancement. It's like, if you're on a long hiking trail, you have a certain goal to get to a destination. There's trials and tribulations along the way, but you're still making progress to the goal. But if you're just like wandering through the woods and, you have no clue where you're going, you're completely lost and bewildered. You don't know if you're making advancement. You don't know if it's, you're making your situation worse or not. You're just randomly stabbing through the dark. So Krishna gives all these procedures for anybody to approach him no matter where they're at. And then in the last portion of the chapter, which we just read, Krishna's giving all these qualities that somebody develops just from actually them serving him. So it's very nice because we don't have to speculate. We can see, oh, the devotees are supposed to have these qualities. So we can come to associate with devotees and we could see if they actually are embodying these qualities. And very easily you could see that these qualities develop in these devotees and in ourselves too, to certain extents. But we could always go deeper. So as we view these things in the light of the Bhagavad Gita, our doubts can become removed and we can depend upon Krishna fully. Krishna brings certain things into our life for our purification. And the more that we accept that and channel that as an offering to Krishna, putting Krishna in the center of our service, of our life, then there's always purification and there's always spiritual advancement and upliftment that could be made. But if we're viewing things in terms of the body or, my situation, this and that, it's always a struggle. It's always a fight. Krishna may bring a certain person into my life and I may not get along with them. But actually, if we're working together to put Krishna in the center, truly, then we have to work past our petty differences, our emotions, our false ego. And in this way, we can grow so much. Because before devotional service, I see somebody, I come in contact with somebody I don't like, I don't agree with, and I go on my own way and I find the people that I like only for a certain period of time until I don't like them, and then I go find the other people that I like. So on and so forth, as the Bhagavatam says, just like sticks coming in a river. They come together for some time and then they dissipate. So pure devotee will see that everybody that's coming to me is being sent by Krishna. This is ultimately Guru coming to me to teach me a particular lesson, something that I'm missing that I need to work on. There's a nice example of this where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was giving a series of lectures, and there was this guy who would sit in the back. He was kind of like a heckler, wasn't so serious. And one day his disciples came to him and they're like, Maharaj, you'll be so happy. This guy, he won't be coming to disturb your lectures anymore. And he's like, oh, really? What happened? They're like, oh, he died. And he was like disturbed. And the disciples were all happy and they were confused. They thought he would be happy also. And he was like, don't you see that was my Guru Maharaj coming here to teach me how to be more tolerant, how to be more patient. So as we see Krishna's hand in all facets of our life, we could see that Krishna is there to guide us and teach us. It's not that I'm in this difficult situation and I want to run to another situation that'll be more favorable. Krishna's bringing this situation for me to work on different faults that I have within myself that I can grow. Because if we just run from all of our problems, guess what you're going to find? More problems. Now, change of setting, change of atmosphere can be good for a certain extent, but ultimately, yes, our problems are internal and we carry them with us. So then they manifest externally. So I may have problems communicating with those around me, which creates dysfunction and disharmony. And then I want to change the atmosphere and find new people or get rid of this person. But to actually bridge the gap and be humble and like communicate, express our problems and deal with things out in the open, it can be tough, challenging to the false ego, because the false ego wants to say, I'm right. I know the way that I see it is best. This person's wrong. These people are wrong. So we have to swallow our pride and really put Krishna in the center. And as we do that, Krishna can blossom more and more in our life. And beautiful relationships develop, beautiful skills, qualities develop, just like Maharaj was speaking and how Krishna is speaking in this end of this chapter. And it's very nice because in all these shlokas, Krishna says, one who has all these qualities, he's very dear to me. But the last one, he says, he who follows this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engages himself with faith, making me the supreme goal, is very, very dear to me. So this is like the cherry on top of the middle 6 chapters that are entailing exclusively with devotional service. As we get into the last 6 chapters, mostly Krishna speaking of jnana, how jnana leads to bhakti. Basically, you could summarize like the first 6 chapters are mostly dealing with karma and how karma leads to bhakti. Middle 6 chapters all about bhakti yoga, and then the last 6 chapters with jnana, knowledge of modes of material nature, of all these, of Kshetra, meaning the field, the knower of the field, and how these things actually relate and connect to Bhakti Yoga. Concluding with the 18th chapter, which is the conclusion. And the conclusion of the conclusion, Krishna very famously says, give up all varieties of dharma, give up all religion, and just surrender unto me. I'll protect you, have no fear. So, I don't know about you guys, but have you ever felt fear before? Anxiety? Social pressure? It's no fun, you know? But if we completely depend upon Krishna, Krishna will protect us in all situations in life. He'll give the vision, the knowledge, the strength, so we can act. But we may not be there to fully depend upon Krishna. So then, what's the best course of action? To approach Krishna's representatives and take shelter of them. Take shelter of Sri Guru. Guru is the external manifestation of Krishna who's showcasing devotional service. And one of the purports in this chapter, Prabhupada, he basically qualifies that to the process that Krishna is saying of abhyas yoga, or practicing, or sadhana bhakti. Means accepting a guru and following the rules and regulations he prescribes, so you can actually rise to the higher standard of being able to think and remember Krishna at all times. Otherwise, if we try to do it on our own, very, very difficult. I mean, anything in life, you think, you know, if a good example is, you know, if our car breaks down and I just want to try to fix it on my own, I can do it. You know, I'll figure it out. I'm going to be standing there a long time with this wrench in my hand. Even if I have instructions, you know, like I go on Google and I find out what to do, it's still difficult. But you approach somebody who knows what to do, and they do it like real quick, and you realize how wrong you were. So this is the same as approaching, you know, the devotees, approaching Guru. They can point out our flaws very quickly, but they are merciful and don't point out our flaws because we're prideful. And if somebody points out all my flaws, I'll become offended, upset, angry, and then I'll leave. So they're very merciful and patient and encourage us to go further and further in devotional service, to work past our flaws, to see them ourselves, and, you know, always build and step forward into the proper direction that we should. So to take shelter of the Guru, of the Shastra, and the devotees is of the utmost importance. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Yes, Jagannath Prabhu.
How can we balance everything and just remember all of the rules and regulations in bhakti?
How can we balance? What's your question specifically? We have to follow the rules and regulations as ordained by the spiritual master. The spiritual master gives us a clear process to follow. So Srila Prabhupada has given us a program of waking up early in the morning, coming for Mangal Arati, worshipping the deity, chanting 16 rounds, taking only Krishna Prasadam, associating only with the devotees, doing service as given to us by our authorities, and working to preach and spread this movement. Pretty much, this is the bulk of the rules and regulations. So just by living here at the temple and participating in the program, one can make rapid advancement in devotional life. As far as finding the balance in between that, that's individual. Every individual will be different. Some of us need more sleep, less sleep. Some need more food, less food. Prasadam. So we have to find our balance. And if we're not able to find the balance on our own, then we should work together with senior devotees who've been around a little bit more and seen some of the ups and downs and tricks that Maya throws at you, and they can help give advice so we can find more balance. But we have to constantly pray to Krishna, take shelter and depend upon Krishna, because Krishna is the balance of everything. You know, there's this, I forget the Sanskrit, but chapter 7, text 7, Krishna says, as pearls are strung together by a thread, you know, he's like that thread, meaning like he's the essence that connects everything, but you can't see him there. So everything's balancing upon Krishna. It's all coming from Krishna. So if Krishna's not in the front and center of our life, it's very, very difficult to achieve balance. So we should pray to Krishna. But the more we make Krishna the main goal of our life, then the more this balance and determination, everything will naturally manifest. But if we have doubts, or I desire to leave and go home so I can sleep as much as I want and, you know, just do whatever I want, yeah, then there's always going to be difficulties. But the more that we're just surrendered to Krishna, let my will be thy will, then Krishna can really help us. So hope that helps. You ready to be balanced? All right, back to 8 and last thing. How do I know when I'm on a mental platform? Very good question. This is something we have to progressively realize more and more to distinguish between what is the mind and what is intelligence. The mind is always accepting and rejecting. It's always flickering, thinking, oh, I like this, I like that, I want this, I want that, I want to go there, I want to be here, I want to do this. It's always, the wheels are always turning, you know, but our intelligence supersedes that, because, you know, I always give the example, like, say, around prasadam, because I think a lot of us can relate. Say, you know, it's a Sunday feast and there's a big bucket of gulab jamins. You might not know what gulab jamins are, but say sweet rice. So my senses come in contact with it, and then I'm like, my mind's like, yeah, I know what that is. You know, I want a lot of it, you know, but your intelligence will be like, hold on. Remember last week I had a little too much, and, you know, there were some bad ramifications that came from that. So let me slow down. So your senses are roaming wild and your mind's hovering, thinking, yeah, that would be good. That would be, yeah, I want that. Your intelligence has to discriminate of, you know, what's actually better. So we have to use spiritual intelligence, which is provided by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, and then we could bring the mind under control of knowing what's best, what's not. But just to be more aware throughout the day, you know, chanting japa is a very good time, because we're trying to chant and control our mind. But then our mind wanders away and thinks about this, thinks about that. So it's a really good way to like see what your mind actually is, and how we've identified with our mind for a long time as being ourself. And we ultimately take no authority of how to live our life except for our mind. No, nobody can tell me what to do. I know what to do in life. I'll figure it out. But we're just depending on our own mind of what concoctions are coming up. So we're trying to overcome that mind by chanting, putting Krishna in there, and, you know, taking Krishna's instructions from the Bhagavad Gita, or taking instructions of the devotees. Then it can help us act more in our natural position, which will naturally help us come over the mind. Helpful? Okay, Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai Shri Shri Gaurandai, Ki Jai Vancha Kapatarubyas Chakripas and the Chapatita.